What's up, guys, and welcome to the Elding Stomr Entertainment production, the Storm X Show. This show lasts for about an hour, so don't watch this if you're operating machinery or having to do anything too terribly important, because chances are you're gonna fuck it up. Viewer discretion advised, as I do not filter my words, and when I give advice, it is as real and unfiltered as a all-American bit smack. So, with that being said, my name is Apex Rebel X, and I'm the host of the show. Every once in a while, I'm gonna have a special co-host, such as JJ420, my beautiful girlfriend, love her to death, love our kids to death. Uh, Later on this year, I may actually have a second special guest who is an up and coming musician in the entertainment industry on the independent side of things. In today's episode, I'm going to kind of let you guys know a little bit about me, what Elding Stomr is, and pretty much uh, what we got on our development slate that's guaranteed to release this year. Now, right at the moment, because I am an independent operation and I am not a large operation at all, literally, I've got my nephew working my camera right now. That shows you how small of an operation this is. But as many of my brothers and sisters in the entertainment field, especially if you are independent and self produced, all of you have had to start at this point, at one point or another. And yes, I am definitely going to be talking about things to do with coming up in the independent industry and being an entity that stands against the fascist creative censorship that is Hollywood and being part of the union. So, pretty much, I go by the name Apex Rebel X, uh, mainly for a metaphorical reason. Um, the funny thing is my last name actually means Alpha and Omega in a different language, a language that really no one today speaks unless they are descendants of these people. Um, so Apex Rebel X pretty much means I am the Alpha and Omega. X is actually because of its value in algebra. It's a variable that literally means limitless, infinite possibilities. And that is what we as a human race actually are. Uh, and Elding Stomr, I actually own it. It's all self-produced right out of my own pocket. I've went through hard times. I've went through times that were legendary bad days. I'm talking didn't have 2 cent shit with. Uh, don't ask me how I fucking survived this because even today, all I can tell you is it's an animal thing. So, pretty much the reason why I chose the name Elding Stomr is because literally everything else I liked that was in the English language had pretty much already been used time and time again. And I figured, well, hey, if I can't use anything in the English language, use a language that's not English, but Old English. Elding Stomr is actually Viking for lightning storm. And because I am a huge fan of my Viking heritage, even doing my own tracing back into the times of the Vikings, this inspired me to learn their language, to read, write, and speak as they do. Um, so, with that being said, you already know I'm a company that's nothing like the rest. Uh, right at the moment, we're kind of based right here out of Michigan. Beautiful little Hesperia. Um, right at the moment, I am actually rebooting a podcast by doing this, mainly because I feel that some of the best podcasts that I have ever enjoyed have actually had visuals to them. And yes, I watch these podcasts on YouTube, especially interviews with my man, the disturbed one, David Draymond. My favorite band in the world is actually Disturbed. Um, I've always found the visual podcast to be more enjoyable because you can put a face to the voice, and from time to time, you can have awesome little sneak peeks into the stuff they're actually talking about. So, without further ado, I'm actually going to get into talking about these projects now. Now, before anyone goes out there trying to cry plagiarism, I was inspired by movies that I grew up with and video games that I grew up with. However, the story and the architecture of all the elements within the animation are actually originally designed by myself. So, the first project up, and it's honestly one that I think I might be a little bit more done with, is a project called Alpha 30. Um, the Crisis Chronicles. Pretty much a special operations deep space military team is dispatched to a deep space facility to investigate a quarantine situation. A multi level facility has mysteriously been having uh, residents disappear at random over the course of 6 months. However, they don't think to get any authorities involved yet, but rather try to run their own. Uh, they try to run their own little investigation internally, not wanting all the troublesomes of legalities. I know, big corporation element, typical. So, pretty much this team starts going around. So, pretty much what this team does when they get there is they start they start looking around for things. They start investigating what might be causing the situation. The only people that are currently safe and protected are inside the residential section of the facility, which is a 64-story tower of living quarters, restaurants, and merchants for which all live and trade on the planet, oftentimes receiving their shipments through the main corporation hangar for which their orders are fulfilled. As well as whenever military assistance is needed, uh, military assistance can be gained by flying in via the hangar. So I was almost worried I wasn't going to have anything too impressive rendered for you guys because I am still coming up within the industry. I'm having to tweak settings on both my machine and the software that I use. For any of you independent artists out there who are curious, I use a combination of DAZ 3D Studio and a free all-around editor called Blender. I'm sure everybody within the entertainment industry in general is familiar with Blender. Hell, my nephew knew about Blender before he ever got to meet me. All in all, those are realistically the only two softwares that I use for my work. And even though my computer is a rather impressive tier 4 build, for those of you out there who are gaming nerds, you know what a tier 4 is. Uh, it's still it's still not exactly easy to come up with these renders in such a short amount of time. So some of these shots, I fair warn you, are actually going to be viewport renders, but I'm going to try to save the bullshit for last, as it's probably just going to unimpress and bore you. But pretty much I render in iRay, so that way I have somewhat a element of realism with these animations. I don't want them to look too much like an old video game from a PS2. My 90s kids, you know what I mean. So iRay renders these characters when the settings are optimized correctly rather quickly, and I was actually getting 3 to 4 frames per minute before I started getting everything together for this video. But just recently, and by recently, I mean yesterday, I figured out how to tweak the settings to where I get 7 to 9 frames per minute. And the quality is to die for. So, pretty much, I'm still working out the kinks within my own methods. As for voicing, I'm pretty much on volunteer work here. It's me and JJ running the show in terms of voicing. Uh, JJ is rather talented with her voice. The woman can sing to the point that I'm sure she could tempt an angel to commit the worthiest of sins. But all in all, uh, pretty much I'm going to have to let you guys go for just a second. I'm going to take a small break, get something to drink, more than likely coffee, and I'll be right back with you guys. You on the snap. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. Sorry for that little bit of a break. I had to get something to drink, and of course, smooth over the throat. Oh, been suffering god awful allergies lately. So, pretty much I was getting into Alpha 30 before the break. So, this special ops team consisting of 4 characters is sent to planet Alpha 30 uh, to investigate the disappearances as well as what may have caused the quarantine situation, um, with 2/3 of the facility's residential staff locked in the hot zone. Now, when the team first gets there, they meet a shift lead for the security staff on one of the sublevels. This entire facility is constructed on the inside of a mountain, due to there being an archaeological dig and the fact that it was originally a mining operation that had already drilled several layers of tunnels into one particular section of the mountain. Um, the people who are still alive and still safe are in the residential tower, which is pretty much, like I said before, I believe, about 64 stories of living spaces and restaurants, even daycares and schools. Um, with the only entrance being the hangar at the very top of the tower. Now, they end up entering the facility, and at first, they don't find anything. So, the team leader, he goes mostly by the name Sarge in the movie, uh, is Sergeant John Stryker. Stryker pretty much tells his team that he has faith in each of their individual abilities and believes they should split up and take all 3 layers of the facility one at a time. Pretty much one agent checking one level and making sure that their sub-objectives are complete, with their primary objectives being the investigation itself. So John is the first person that we get a FPS effect with. And for those of you who might be ignorant to the term, FPS is first person shooter, which means we're seeing this pretty much as the character Grays does. Lucas Grays is the team IT. He basically stays wherever it's safe for the most part. However, he is trained to use a couple of handheld assault weapons, as well as his sidearm. Grays is pretty much their eyes and ears, having access to cybernetic systems, either by hacking or being let in by somebody who's there. Grays also kind of acts as a gun cam supervisor. He's basically watching the whole team, making sure what they're shooting at is not somebody who doesn't need to be shot at. He can tell them to cease fire if it's something that just spooked them. So pretty much the first person effect is pretty much a gun cam effect, or a heads up display effect, if you will. There's a little counter for whatever ammo happens to be in use at that point. Normally these guys move around with their primaries drawn, so it's mainly the primary ammunition that's being kept track of. There's also a communication system that's linked to Grays himself, that acts as a small video at certain times, mainly when Stryker is in direct contact with him. On top of that, Stryker's vision has a slight green effect to it, which shows that his heads-up display utilizes digital enhanced vision. We also have rendered a few actual sniper rifle shots that we rendered within the scope of his rifle. Dixie, however, she mostly goes by Blue. She actually uses a double tap type of assault weapon. It can be set to a double tap for close quarter combat. However, whenever she needs to utilize her specialty, which is being an expert sniper rifle marksman, she basically can switch it up. Dixie also utilizes a small SMG that is normally kept in her weapons case. Normally these guys travel around with only one weapons case, but for whatever reason, the corporation at first gives them clearance to carry a second, more sophisticated weapons case than they originally carried. These weapon cases are usually broken into tiers of 4. With tier 1 and tier 2 normally being the rarity that's assigned. So these guys split up, but John is the first that encounters a hostile creature. He doesn't get a clear view of it at first, but he realizes that it's capable of shooting at him. as it's using one of the experimental weapons from sublevel 2. Sublevel 2 is where the special weapons research is conducted, and according to the lab manifest, there are 2 locations that a possible access point could be gained. One being the armory itself, if the hostile was an employee with access, or the testing room, which is a large-scale facility on the opposite side of the sublevel. These sublevels also have areas that interact, not just through staircases, but also they can interact through an experimental technology that allows teleportation to be possible. However, the system is highly damaged and most of the portals are locked in their default positions. When he finally takes down the creature, he realizes that it looks like a rotted out carcass of one of the station's employees. He notices the badge is for the Special Weapons Research Center, and the weapon is one of the special weapons lockers that, come to find out, had been broken into, with most of their weaponry being pulled. Now, it does not take long before Stryker ultimately realizes that they're dealing with a hostile alien situation. Believing that they have no idea what they're dealing with, Stryker sends out a message for everyone to get back immediately. Stryker, however, ultimately ends up going up against multiple targets of the same variety. However, once he is able to fight his way through them, he realizes that his heads-up display had been damaged. So, he makes his way quickly to the elevator, picking up one of the special assault weapons that he had seen before. Another of the weapons that was actually reported missing from a manifest. This weapon is a energy style weapon, and it's normally a one-shot quitter. Being due to the fact that the weapon is pretty much atomically charged photon particles that pretty much melt anything they hit. After making his way to the service elevator, he gets his helmet off, realizing that his heads-up display is doing nothing more than decreasing the accuracy of his aim. He sends himself down into sublevel 2, where Dixie is up against a similar situation. Dixie, however, is slightly wounded due to an unknown energy blast that grazed her shoulder. Due to the fact she had to switch up to her secondary weapon, as her left arm is pretty much the only arm she could use, due to the thermal damage to her armor and a sort of neurological shock in her shoulder itself. So, when she manages to get eyes on the elevator, it opens up and out comes Stryker, firing a weapon for the first time, dual wielding it, as a matter of fact, having a second one in his hand. He fires a single blast and it breaches the main gas line, which causes a highly flammable gas to start spewing from the pipe. Once this starts happening, he pulls his sidearm as Dixie enters the elevator and fires a single round into the gas. As soon as the ricochet happens, of course, the gas ignites and the whole room fills with flames. not before getting a quick look at the second tier of creatures that comes within the movie. They ultimately end up grabbing Twitch miraculously unscathed and with his weapon barely having a quarter of its ammunition used. They ascend back and re-enter the civilian tower of the structure and pretty much discuss where they need to go from there. Now, I can't really do too much more spoiling with you guys as there are a couple of plot twists within this thing. But if you like what you see so far and you're watching this, whether it's on a streaming app or YouTube, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on these episodes as well as other stuff Elding Stomr may release to YouTube. Now, in terms of distribution, I am going to put these films on our YouTube channel. However, you're going to have to watch some ads as I do need to make a revenue off of this. Hey, we all got to live, we all got to eat, and I got 4 mouths to feed. That's counting me. So, pretty much, I will be putting some of my films up on YouTube here on the Elding Stomr page. Can't wait for you guys to be able to watch those. Depending on the streaming app, you may or may not have to watch ads to support us because you support your streaming platform and they ultimately pay us. So either which way, whether you're paying for it or not, we hope you enjoy it and we thank you because, like I said, whether you are paying or not, we are making a revenue, some form or fashion. If you really want to support us and be eligible for some really cool stuff, by all means, look us up on our Patreon page. Every little bit helps. So, pretty much, that's Alpha 30. And I'm not going to tell you how the film ends or anything like that, but I am going to say that this is probably going to be one of my favorite projects that I have ever done. And yes, I will go ahead and answer and say there are sequels that will come with this project. Can't wait to actually show you guys what's going on with it. So, pretty much, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with you. Welcome back, guys. So, I explained to you guys about Alpha 30 and what this project is somewhat about. I actually want to take this time to go ahead and switch over to the second project that's on our development slate this year, which means this is a project we intend to release this year. And this project is actually a personal favorite of mine. It's what got me started, really in pursuing entertainment. Is a project called Forsaken Crusader. I originally wrote the script years ago when I was about 15. Mailed it off to my favorite producer in a company that I'm not going to disclose. And this is kind of how I got my first reality check as to how ruthless getting into entertainment really can be. So, pretty much, this project is really sentimental to me. It's one that I got autographed by my favorite producer and director. And he hand wrote me a letter that kind of broke out a few general rules that people need to know getting into this industry. Um, and that is Hollywood is a fascist, non creative union that ceases control over all creativity, and pretty much all it says is integrity for sale across your forehead if that's what you want to pursue. A lot of times, people only get into Hollywood based on a manner of sexuality, or they happen to know somebody on the inside. Channing Tatum used to be my boyfriend, whatever the case may be. Okay. Which, by the way, that's completely false. I just always thought Channing Tatum looked, a little bit girly. Sorry. Nothing but love, dude. You're too much of a pretty boy. Anyway, um, pretty much, this project revolves in a world that's basically like our own, but is also completely made up at the same time. You have the regular police department, and then you have the Jaeger Corps. For those of you who may not realize, Jaeger, when used in the Celtic definition, actually means hunter, versus in Norse, Jaeger actually means Titan or mighty. Anyway, the Jaeger Corps is controlled by a fascist religious agency called the clergy, which is pretty much what gives Rising Up Jaegers a full training camp, and they either pass or they fail. There is no in between. So, on that note, we have an element of religiously controlled politics, something our very first president said never to let happen. Funny how that works. Pretty much the story revolves around a seemingly human Jaeger by the name of Rex Striggers. Rex Striggers, however, is not entirely human, as he is a Nephilim. Being the fact that he is able to transform into a demonic form. This demonic form, however, is pretty much the young blood form. It's not the strongest of demonic forms, but it's a transformation nonetheless. It features more of Rex's human appearance than it does anything else. Other than the fact that he has red skin, a demonic style suit, and giant devil horns with blazing eyes. I mean, come on, it doesn't get more demonic than that. Rex is actually the only descendant of a demon queen, for whom fought on the side of keeping humanity out of the eternal conflict. The eternal conflict being between the high heavens and the dark 9 rings of the oblivion, which is pretty much hell. His mother wielding the mighty Forsaken Crusader, a family-forged blade that is a one-of-a-kind and cannot be wielded by anyone other than Rex and his descendants, as it is within his bloodline, a family heirloom. Rex, however, pretty much relies on this sword and his golden pistol called Gold Devil. Gold Devil is actually one of the pistols that he uses throughout the 3-movie trilogy and even the animated series I intend to come out with in between the films to kind of help give some filler space into what's going on with the films. However, Rex does not operate alone. Even though he still owes a debt to the clergy, he already has a team of Jaegers that he enlists and entrusts. His right-hand man actually being a woman, and his own lover, Cassandra Ruiz. Cassandra, or Cassie as she's mostly called, is actually quite the talented young witch, brewing more than half of the potion drafts Rex and his team tend to use. These potion drafts can be anything from enhancing herbal stimulants to full-on healing and rejuvenation potions, even some of the potions being the type of potions that can restore Rex's ability to transform and hold the transformation for longer than his body can withstand. Rex's transformations can only withstand as long as he does not suffer sufficient damage. If he has suffered sufficient damage in demon form, he will revert back to his seemingly human state, simply because his energy has to recuperate and his rage has to be reinstilled, as his demonic transformation is activated by his potent rage. Cassie, however, is also a combatant and one of only 2 members of Rex's team who are actually independently licensed Jaegers, which means they don't answer to the clergy. However, they are still held to the standard of the Jaeger Code, written by the Archangel Gabriel himself, for whom you may not see later. Cassie, however, is also a quite talented combat witch, being capable of casting multiple elemental spells and even using her pair of blades, Blitz and Blizzard. Blitz and Blizzard allow her to inflict both wind and ice damage at the same time, and when she's really backed into a corner, she sacrifices most all of her magical ability and energy to unleash a special attack spell called the Hell Blitz. The Hell Blitz being a cyclone of freezing cold winds that form as a blizzard and spins round and round to the point that the damage done is normally cauterized, and most lesser evils such as zombies tend to be disintegrated within its wrath. However, larger demons tend to need to be closer in order to really feel the full effects of the damage. Amongst their team, however, is actually a non-combatant for the most part. He rarely takes interest in being on the battlefield. His name is John Steele, the only human Hell Knight living. A human Hell Knight is pretty much a human being who is larger than average and can take on a fully metallic form that is powered by the fires of hell. The fires of hell literally being a sort of bloodline that conveniently made its way into the world. There aren't very many human Hell Knights, and the human Hell Knights that are around oftentimes play it safe, keeping their talents concealed with the art of blacksmithing, gunsmithing, and alchemical smithing. John is pretty much a character that is always around somehow, having his pretty much entire fortune being built upon a franchise of nightclubs and cafes, which is how he's able to pretty much be where Rex needs him to be when he needs to be there. These nightclubs tend to have at least one door with an invisible spell that can be activated with an incantation that only members of Rex's team knows. This incantation allows them to enter Steel's arcane forge, where he tends to create most of the weapons that Rex and Cassie uses. There is another character that is under development for Rex's team. However, I haven't quite finished the conceptual design and exactly how his role plays into the team. Just know that he is a rookie Jaeger for whom has paid off most of his debt to the clergy. However, like Rex, due to his talents, the clergy doesn't exactly like to play fair and let him go that easily, as most of his cases have either been shortchanged on technicality or simply ignored for lack of evidence. This particular character goes by the name of Maxwell Adams. He's pretty much a human being who is capable of accessing spiritual magic, which is exactly how he's able to gain his superhuman abilities and even grow claws to use for melee combat. Later on, I intend to give him more special abilities, such as actually transforming, but for right now, that's the best I can do. For this little project, I'm only going to give a few basic points of the story, just to give you guys something to be interested in. And again, before I go any further, if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to hit that like button if you like the content. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe bell with the notifications. Every little bit helps, and we do not necessarily need you to pay for the service that you are watching this on. However, if you are watching this on a streaming service, we still thank you, because if you're paying for the service or watching free with ads, we are still getting paid either way, and your support is still given with nothing more or nothing less out of your pocket than you would normally spend. However, if you are feeling generous and want to be eligible for some pretty cool stuff, such as pre-orders to merch and having special discounts on certain items, please feel free to support us on Patreon. We have 2 tiers as of this moment that qualify for 2 different packages that we think everybody will actually love. So before we get into the story, we're going to take a quick break so that way I can get some more coffee and finish out this show nice and strong. We'll be right back with you. And welcome back, guys. So, to dive into the story of the Forsaken Crusaders a little bit more, basically right after making quick work of a large brute class demon in the downtown streets of Central General City, Rex is pretty much summoned up to the commissioner's office, where where Agent Gore of the uh, clergy is pretty much sitting there waiting for him. The clergy make it a point to remind Rex that he still has an unpaid marker, and his protege has an unpaid marker as well, having more than double the debt that Rex does still to pay. Rex makes a deal with the Inquisition agent and vows that this would be his last mission to run for the clergy. The Inquisitor agent guy pretty much just issues one of the typical little threats that until your debt is paid, we own you, and you have no choice in the matter. Rex pretty much moves on, crossing paths with Cassie in their headquarters, which is pretty much a 3-story apartment. The first 2 stories being their actual office space, and the very top story being their actual living space. I still don't have all of the assets I need to really make all of these environments work as of right now, but I should be able to finish producing this project sometime closer to June or July, which means this project will actually be ready for release right around Halloween time. Well, after meeting up with Cassie and discussing the fact that they now have a mission assigned from the clergy and a deal has been struck to pay off both Rex and Max's debts to the clergy, which would allow them to become a fully independent license to hunt team. The two head down to a place called the Silver Raven, which turns out to be one of John's many nightclub cafes. Due to the fact that this is a cafe open primarily at night, it pretty much gives Rex the ability to enter outside of the clergy's eyes. After acquiring a new shotgun from Steele and his polearm class cleaver, he begins to head on his way, concealing the weapons with his magical ability and heading outside to find that Cassie is waiting for him, leaned up against what would appear to be a 68 Nova. Now, just so you guys know, the 68 Nova is actually the name of the asset for the car that I use. However, due to legality reasons, it's not actually going to be called a 68 Nova, but rather just a Beast V8. Rex and Cassie start on their merry way. However, once they arrive upon the initial location, being a small town just outside of a castle-like manor, they're immediately shunned by more than half the town, as apparently many Jaegers have been sent to this town to deal with its demon sorcerer problem. After just a bit of fishing for information, they find out that the demon sorcerer is none other than the Necro Bishop. The Necro Bishop meaning the 3rd highest ranked necromancer, which is pretty much a dark magician that utilizes mostly conjurings of the undead, summoning demons and inflicting curses in combat. They're not oftentimes very handy in close quarter combat, however, that is subject to change in this case. Come on, I gotta keep it interesting for you guys. Amongst their journeys, they come across more zombies and pretty much end up having to deal with a entire pack of lycans. Yes, werewolves. However, they end up dealing with a mix of these enemies the closer to the castle they get. Upon reaching the castle, they find themselves having to tango against the Cerberus brothers. However, they only come across the first two of them. The first two brothers ultimately are wounded in battle so badly that they cannot take the chance of losing their lives, as their third brother would be the only brother to face Rex and his team later. As Rex and his team begins to make their way through the castle, they ultimately end up getting separated for a few moments, and of course, Cassie nearly gets hurt due to the Necrobishop having a cursed zombie walking around the first floor manor. This cursed zombie tends to radiate a green poisonous energy that also gives off a gas-like form. Cassie bests it, however, having a few all-purpose remedies on her person at that time. Utilizing her handy-dandy injector gun, she's able to administer the potion and cure herself of the disease. Rex, however, ends up going toe-to-toe with a larger, more brutal class of demon known as the Minotaur. This dual axe-wielding beast tries to make the best out of Rex. However, Rex ultimately wins, being able to activate the Forsaken Crusader's true form and transforming himself into his demon state at the same time. However, it is at this point that we realize Rex can only hold his demon state for a few minutes. A few minutes being the maximum amount of time the demon state can be held together by the frailness of what appears to be his human form. Realizing that he is out of time and could no longer hold his transformation, Rex ultimately decides to regroup with Cassie and head back to the town, for which, strangely enough, has a small cafe that is also, again, active during the night hours. However, this cafe is called the Steel Stallion. The Steel Stallion being one of John's many locations. Rex takes a piece of the Minotaur's horn into the establishment with him and hands it over to John to be reforged into a new weapon. The new weapon pretty much being Rex's polearm axe class and heavy hitter, Hellbreaker. The Hellbreaker axe pretty much gives Rex a bit of an edge, as in his normal state, he already has the strength of 100 men. However, Rex and Cassie end up going out together again, within the same night. However, by the time they reach the castle, the sun begins to rise and the castle is reduced to what appears to be a fully abandoned state. All of the demons, zombies, and creatures that plague the entire castle vanish during the daylight hours. They, however, come into first contact with the Necrobishop himself within the castle's cathedral point. its cathedral point being set up much like a circular court, with benches and everything in a centermost point of the room, pretty much being clear for whoever has the floor. Standing in that position, of course, is the Necro Bishop himself. Pardon me. The Necro Bishop issues a few verbalized threats and then utilizes some pure demon magic to attack Rex and Cassie, giving himself just enough cover to escape from Rex and Cassie's view. After escaping, the Necro Bishop speaks pretty much in an echo, giving Rex a clue that the Necro Bishop is not entirely a human being, but rather a controlled vessel that would soon take demonic form and be his competitor. After quite a few more encounters with the dark side variety that only comes out at night, Rex and Cassie ultimately end up facing off against the Necro Bishop himself. Now, like I said, I'm not really going to give you guys any more spoilers about this particular project because I really don't want to ruin it for you guys. But just know that there is actually a variety of weapons, magic, and even fight sequences that occur within this movie. And there will actually be a sequel that I'll produce later on down the line. That is, of course, depending on how this one and its serialized counterpart does in the future. Now, like I said, if you like what you see and you want to support us, you don't have to pay anything that you don't already. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you have no choice but to pretty much watch the ads, as the ads are pretty much what's funding our account on the YouTube front. If you're watching this on a streaming app for free, chances are we're being paid the same exact way. However, if you are watching on a paid subscription, we thank you also, due to the fact that you are actually putting a monetary exchange for our projects, and that means a lot. But if you're just watching on YouTube and you want to support us without having to pay anything, just hit that like button, smash that notification button, and subscribe to us. Make sure you don't miss out on any future installments of this show, and you will be able to access some of our films. However, be warned again, we do include ads on most of our films, as this is pretty much how our starting revenue on YouTube works. Eventually, one day, we hope to do away with the ads, but we can't promise anything right off the rip for right now. So thanks for your support. And if you feel like being generous, check out our Patreon page, as we have 2 tiers that'll give you access to some pretty sweet stuff. Give you the type of access to where you can pre-order certain products before we even launch them, and some other cool stuff as well. So before I move on into the final little part of my show, I actually want to take some time to show something on camera. These are X bracelets. JJ420 made them. She's actually really talented. I'm wearing a red and black one, thanks to Thanks to my camera person, we now have some light. I'm wearing a red and black one, but you'll notice it has a green X. There's also a multicolored one right here with a green X, a yellow X, and a red X. Pretty much meaning the 3 times unlimited. 3 times the power, 3 times the charm. If you guys want to purchase these, we're going to have a marketplace page set up soon. We'll make sure that we let you know when we do, so that way you guys can, if you're interested, have custom bracelets made or just get your X swag on. So pretty much to go into the final part of this video, I actually want to let you guys know that we have a bit of a situation going on with Hollywood. If there's not an actor's strike, there's a union workers strike, and if there's not a union workers strike, there's a Writers Guild of America strike going on. And something that I have noticed is Hollywood has completely ran out of original material, and they're too afraid to take the risk that comes with using material never seen before, whether in any form of IP or whatever. People want to see something they haven't seen a million times over. They're ready for a fresh story with a fresh hero and a fresh villain. They're ready for something fresh that hasn't been told a million times before. It's a bit of a gamble that you take in the independent industry, especially if you're a small operation and you're building up. In the words of one of my favorite motivational songs, know that the pain you feel today will give you the strength you will need tomorrow. Remember that the key is consistency, for the harder the battle, the sweeter the victory. And pretty much what this means is the harder you have to fight, pretty much the sweeter your victory will be. Don't give up just because it's hard. It's true that most producers, especially in the union, spend 75% of their time looking for funding, but the really successful stories, especially amongst independent entertainment, is that 75% also gets spent in production as well. It's not just about looking for funds, it's about making what funds you have at what time work so far. You really have to learn how to penny pinch this market. As impossible as it literally is, you have to take a singular penny and make that tiny piece of copper basically stretch a mile. No matter what your currency is, no matter what country you're in, no matter what language you speak, no matter what, nothing in life is ever really going to be free. Nothing in life is ever going to be worth having if you did not have to fight and claw your way for it. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you are in film, animation, music production, or even just street side showbiz. To get good at something, you have to practice. And in order to practice, you have to acquire. what you need to perfect your practice. Like I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't have had these renders to show you guys if I literally didn't find out a way to tweak um, my software settings in DAZ 3D, which increased my productivity more than 40%. I'm getting a lot more done in a lot less time now. That's not to say that I'm not going to be presented with more challenges later on down the line. Life will always put challenges in front of you, but you have got to be ready to face those challenges, and you have got to be ready to take hits, because nothing is ever going to come easy to you. Nothing is ever going to come terribly cheap for you. I don't care what resources you use. I don't care how you do things. Yeah, your costs could be even lower than mine, but at the same time, you may not be able to produce the same quality as me, or vice versa. You might be able to spend more money than I can. You know, I'm in a committed relationship. I have two beautiful boys that I take care of. I consider them my sons. You know, there are necessities that have to come first. Don't throw yourself into a homeless shelter trying to chase this, because, you know, unlike certain authors who can write a book in a homeless shelter with a kid in her lap every night, a lot of us don't really have the luxury of striking luck like that. That is pure luck. However, for those of us who have the willingness and strength to strive, to push, you know, whether you're already established in the industry or you're still building upon that first project like a lot of us are, Hollywood is not going to give up the freedom to be in this industry without a fight. They're going to find ways to make your life a living hell. And they don't even have to act directly. All they have to do is contract assets and make people for whom would pretty much be your bread and butter suffer their greed and tenacity to keep control of an industry that they are losing. You know, and on my final address, I am going to say this. And this is the last thing I'm going to say before we close out the show, because we're actually running out of time here. Nothing is ever worth having if you didn't have to work for it. But at the same time, don't think that you have to work super hard to get to where you need to be. Also, in life, intelligence is key. You're not going to get everywhere with brute strength and stubbornness alone. You have to be smart. You have to do your research. You have to do things that require you to think on a constant basis. It will drag you down. It will make you feel like you are absolutely losing your mind. But in the end, it will all be worth it. I promise. I'm Apex Rebel X, and I can't wait to see you guys next time right here on the Storm X Show. Have a good night.